We've got Martin Smith of eNCA Capital who joins me now to break down those numbers. Thank you, as always, Martin, for joining us this evening. Let's start with the JSE and the movements there. I mean, the JSE ending off the day over 3%. Financials doing well. I mean, it was green across the board. I mean, what do we attribute some of these major movements to?
Good evening. So I think there's a couple of things. So we started off quite positive on the back of risk appetite, I think, improving a little bit. But then you had some news also out of China around stimulus package that's going to come through there from the selling of their bonds, which pushed commodity prices up dramatically. And you saw a rise, specifically the diversified miners, pushing up very, very nicely on the day. You also had Naspers and Prosus continuing their kind of uptick on the back of the news that came out a couple of weeks ago around selling of their 10-cent stake and buying back shares. So a lot of positivity and a lot of green on the screens.
No, absolutely. One of the other big things that we're looking at right now is the price of Brent crude. So yesterday it did decrease quite a bit, Martin. It has gone back up to about $105 a barrel. I mean, your thoughts on the medium-term outlook for the price of Brent? I assume the fluctuation is also got to do with the global recession fears that have arisen over the last few weeks.
No, you're 100% correct. It's exactly that, the fears around recession. So obviously we saw an issue around the supply side of things when you had the war in Russia and Ukraine really start to kick off, which pushed the price up dramatically. And you've seen, along with a lot of other commodities as well, price coming off on fears around recession and global growth and the like. So it's difficult to kind of tell where that'll settle because there's still a lot of things that need to kind of be figured out. Where does US inflation go? How is growth looking? What happens in Russia and Ukraine? So there's still a lot of moving parts. I think that the oil will remain higher for longer. I don't expect it to go back down to kind of 70, 80 in a hurry, though.
Yeah. Before we get into some company updates, let's talk about that rally in stocks like Sasol, Glencore, all upwards of about 7% in early afternoon trade. Martin, I mean, what did you make of some of the movements that we saw in these share prices?
Yeah, so very much on the back of the news out of China and the stimulus there. People are speculating that that'll be very good from an infrastructure perspective. So like I mentioned earlier, you've got the diversifieds pushing a lot higher than things like PGMs, for example. So you saw things like Sasol and things like Anglos and Southleaf too pushing up quite nicely. So I think we also need to remember that you've had these companies kind of being sold off 20 to 25% in the last couple of weeks as well. So also a little bit of a bounce from that, but overall very positive for those companies and for South Africa because we are very much a commodity-based economy.
Mediclinic. So this is an interesting story. They declined an offer of a buyout from Remgro about 3 times. And now the board members are saying, OK, we might say yes to the 4th offer. Obviously, it's going to be going to have to be significantly higher. And those in the know do say that a higher offer will be put on the table. What do you make of Remgro's latest chase, whether it's a good, acquisition to be going for, and just the outlook thereafter?
Yeah, so I think that the offer's around about, call it 100 South African rand. And we need to also remember that Mediclinic was a share that was trading at 70 rand not so long ago. So I think this represents a good offer for shareholders. I think that they'll take it up at around that level. If it doesn't go ahead, I think this price could go back to around 80 or so. So I expect it to potentially go ahead. I think it's a good acquisition from Remgro and partners. I mean, they already own 55% of the company. But I think what it also talks to is how cheap South African assets are. There's so many businesses on the JSE that are trading at incredibly low multiples. And I think that's also something to take away from this. But yeah, I think that shareholders would be happy at a level of around 100 rand.
Thank you, Martin. As always, thank you very much for speaking with me this evening. That is Martin Smith giving us the very latest in today's market movements.